Hi there, welcome to another edition of Counterpunch with Trevor Loudon, the show that details and exposes the ongoing world communist revolution. Please like the show, share the show, subscribe to Epoch TV, go to my website trevorloudon.com. My books are available there. I've just launched a new one very recently, House Un-Americans Part 1. Part 1 of 6 books exposing 100 currently serving US Congress members. But today I want to talk about why conservatives, and especially conservatives, should support Ukraine. In the United States, unfortunately, it is mainly the liberals who are supporting Ukraine or saying they're supporting Ukraine. It's the Biden administration. The conservative movement, by and large, tends to be fairly neutral, and in some unfortunate cases, actually supporting the invasion of Ukraine. So why is that wrong, and why should we take exactly the opposite tack? Well, I want everybody to read this new book. It's written by my friend Thomas Cromwell, Why Ukraine Must Win. Now, Thomas Cromwell is a British journalist, now lives in America, 35 years experience writing in the Middle East. He knows Russia well, he knows Ukraine well, he knows the dynamics at play, and he knows history. He understands what's at stake here. And so this book, get it on Amazon. It's a short book. You can read it in an hour. It's the best explanation out there why we need to support Ukraine, the rationale for it, and countering the arguments against doing so. Anybody who cares about this issue, positive or negative, should at least get this book to acquaint themselves with the arguments. Now, Thomas deals with 3 main areas in the book. The geopolitical reasons why Ukraine must win. Why Ukraine must not just compromise or, go to a peace treaty, but must win unequivocally. Must force the Russians out of their territory 100%, including Crimea, everything. And then reparations and a whole bunch of things that would go on from that. Thomas also deals with all of the bogus arguments out there. Now, we all need to understand the Russian government has tens of thousands of people sitting at computers every day turning out bogus information on Ukraine for American and Western audiences. I just saw a story the other day. The Russians bombed an apartment building well away from the front, civilian apartment building. 23 people died, including 6 children from 1.5 years old to 6. The Russians, in their own propaganda, publicized this and said to their people in Russia, this was a Ukrainian attack on buildings in the occupied Russian zones of Luhansk and Donetsk. They not only refused to take responsibility for what they did, they blamed it on the Ukrainians and said it was an attack on Russia's friends. This is what they do. So there's a massive propaganda campaign out there. The airwaves are inundated by this stuff. And it's all designed to confuse, to neutralize, and in some cases, even to win support for Russia's invasion, Russia's brutal invasion of Ukraine. Now, Thomas goes through all the points, point by point, and you've heard them all. You see them. This is coming through QAnon. Tucker Carlson would echo many of these points. You see it on mainstream conservative media. You see it on all sorts of websites all the time. These certain memes, and Thomas goes through every single one of them and shows the truth, shows the lies behind them. That it's all NATO's fault. That's a common one. It's NATO's fault, wanting to push up to the borders of Russia. Well, Ukraine wouldn't have tried to join NATO had Russia kept out of Georgia and the Caucasus and didn't invade the Crimea. But so Thomas goes into all of these things. Another big myth out there. Ukraine should be a buffer state. It should be a buffer state between Russia and Europe. As if 40 million Ukrainians don't have a right to a free life. As though they're not quite as human as the rest of us. And they've just got to be some buffer that gets bossed around by Russia to make sure we don't have to confront the problem. That is hardly a moral argument. It's all the fault of America. You know, America expanded NATO, America boxed Russia in, America did this, and this. Look, Thomas goes through all of these arguments in great detail. He's a professional journalist. He's a student of the area. He knows the history, and he makes very compelling counter-arguments. Now, we must not escalate the war, because that could lead to World War III. What would have happened before World War II had the Allies decided to stop Hitler early on? When he went into the Sudetenland, said, look, Hitler, if you do this, you know, there will be war. Do you think he would have done it? He annexed Austria with no reaction and took the third time Poland, basically before war was declared. Had he been stopped earlier and confronted earlier, maybe we could have avoided the war, or at least lessened the impact of it. Tell me one time in history where a problem has been solved by delaying confronting it, where a problem has gotten better by ignoring it. Tell me one time. But that's what we're being told to do right now. We've got an expansionist Russia, a neo-communist Russia. You know, the tanks are flying hammer and sickle flags. The statues of Lenin are going up in Luhansk and Donetsk. Russia is blatantly doing deals with communist Nicaragua and Venezuela and communist China. But we're treating it as though this is just a battle between states. Putin may use nukes. Absolutely he may. But what is the best way to stop him doing that? If we give up Ukraine, just let Ukraine fall. Well, Putin has already threatened Japan. He actually planned an invasion of Japan, which is not a member of NATO, by the way. And he is openly destabilizing the Baltic states and Moldova right now, and he's threatened to take back East Germany. Does anybody seriously think that if Ukraine falls, that's the end of it? Then you're talking NATO states. Then that guarantees a response. If Putin puts a foot in any NATO state, that means World War III. Isn't it better to stop that happening? You got 40 million brave Ukrainians on the verge of defeating Vladimir Putin's armies. All they want is some Western help and support. They're not even asking for our troops. They just want support. Isn't that a better deal than letting Ukraine fall and having Russian troops on the border of NATO countries, fresh off a victory, armed with nuclear weapons? You think things are bad now? You think things are risky now? You think they'll get better if Ukraine falls?